go. Amazing. That's my boy. That's my boy.
He breaks away from a sack and completes the pass for first down.
Oh, Kittle just may have made the most amazing catch.
He fights for the first down and gets out of bounds too.
It's no good. Overtime. Oh, what a catch. How do you drop that? What are you, Jamal Adams? Touchdown.
This is a touchdown all the way.
He reached over the pylon. San Francisco beat Cincinnati.
We are live. We got Harry W. We got Richie from Jets Media, Matt O'Leary, Iowa Jets fan, we're in the house. We got Dom C in the house. We got Steve, live, CEO of the Jet Lounge. So I knew I'd get rich on my channel. See what's going on. Yeah, there we go. Woo.
Jets by $1 million today.
Yeah. And hello, today is game day. The AFC Championship game, the NFC Championship game. Not necessarily in that order, but the games are being played today. I believe we start with Philadelphia versus the 49ers. No, I don't just believe it. I know it because I'm excited to watch the game. Finally, we have the top 4 teams in football playing. No upsets, no weird stories, nothing, crazy. Some people might say, I expected it to be Buffalo. Well, why? Buffalo has not exactly been the greatest playoff team. As a matter of fact, their best run at it was when they almost upset Kansas City because Patrick Mahomes went out a few years ago. But since then, Buffalo hasn't been the team. So, they just don't win the big games. Cincinnati appears to. They know how to get through the big playoff games. So there you go. Now it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Let's start. We'll talk about the Eagles and the Niners. The Niners have been on just an insane run. It has not been hurt by the emergence of Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the 2022 draft, Brock Purdy. Now, is he carrying the team on his back? Is he John Elway? Is he Dan Marino? Is he airing the ball out? No, but that's okay because that's not how this offense is built. This offense is about distributing the ball to your weapons. This is about getting the ball to your weapons, which Brock Purdy has done an amazing job at. The other thing is, don't turn the ball over. Brock Purdy has not turned the ball over, and that is why the Niners are rolling. Another thing that Brock Purdy has is the ability to feel the pressure. He has senses of what's going on around him. He just doesn't stand there like a statue. He moves around. He floats around, and that is another reason why he's been successful. Now, one of the things that you can consider a criticism or not, it's working out overall for him, is that he doesn't have the crazy arm talent because people will say, well, why wasn't he drafted early? Why was he the last pick? What was it about him? So there were obviously things about him that scouts don't see, right? It's impossible to measure instinct, like speed of the game. Who's going to adjust? Who's going to be able to see the game and carry out a game plan? And that's what they miss on, right? But arm talent is something, and when we say arm talent, Brock Purdy is not the kind of guy that could run to the left and while he's running, throw across his body and throw a beautiful pass, right? He usually is going to have to either throw the ball out of bounds or he's going to have to stop, pivot, and throw the ball. Now, let me tell you why that's not such a bad thing. The reason it's not such a bad thing is you don't want a guy who's going to try to do that doesn't have the natural ability to do that. Not everybody is Patrick Mahomes. And when you try to do things that are unnatural, like running to the left and throwing the ball to the right, that leads to turnovers and mistakes because not everybody is Patrick Mahomes. What's nice about Purdy is he doesn't copy those guys. He's not trying to be those guys. He stops and he pivots and he throws. And the good thing about that is what it shows about Brock Purdy is he's very committed to fundamentals. It means he cares about his mechanics. He stops and he pivots so he can step and throw through his step when he's throwing the football. Now, look, you can't expect, if you're a Niners fan, that he's Patrick Mahomes, that he's going to be amazing at everything. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because plenty of quarterbacks that are not able to run to the left and whip a pass all the way to the right have success in the NFL. Tons and tons of them. As a matter of fact, we all went nuts in Jets world for Zach Wilson because he can do it. But guess what? Unlike Purdy, he can't get the ball to his playmakers. He can't somehow have that instinct and read and make decisions quickly enough. We don't know that he'll never be able to, but it doesn't make him look good that Brock Purdy figured it out from game one during his first year versus Zach Wilson, who's had 22 games and hasn't figured it out. So football is a lot more than just arm talent. Now, on the other side of the ball, we got the Eagles. We got the underrated Jalen Hurts. And I say that because everybody refuses to acknowledge that Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. He is. He is because he wins. And he leads his team to scoring. You can't argue that fact. He is a solid quarterback. So, what's up, Jets Mess? It's good to see you here. What, did you go on both channels so you can... Is this the West Coast Pinky Up Football channel? What do you mean West Coast Pinky Up Football channel? Oh, you went to the Niners Chaos channel. Hey, don't put down Niner fans, man. Their team is within a game of the Super Bowl. Yours isn't. And this ain't no happenstance. Who's that? Who's that ugly guy? Anybody recognize this ugly guy? Yeah. He's so ugly I wear him on my shirt because I need to tell people how ugly he is. What's up, Jess Mess? Good to see you today. So, hey, look, we're getting ready for some football. I think it's going to be a great game. Jalen Hurts is really good, exciting quarterback. The Eagles' running game is great. Their defense is solid. They are just a balanced team. They're good everywhere. The fact that they have draft picks again, my God, people. My God, the trade that they made, it is crazy. This team keeps on getting good draft picks. And, they traded those. They had like 2 or 3 picks last year, and they made a trade where now they have, I think they're in the top 12, top 10 even. And then they're going to have their normal picks. So they're going to have 2 first-round picks on a team that's already in the Super Bowl. They don't rely on one star so much as other teams. They're not as star-heavy, where Buffalo is nothing without Josh Allen. Green Bay is nothing without Aaron Rodgers. Jalen Hurts is really good. But somehow I think that they could win. I mean, they lost the 2 games with Gary Minshew, but I don't think they were very motivated. And I think over the course of a season, they would do fine. I see the Eagles as very well balanced. There's a lot of quarterbacks who can go there and do really well. So that's exciting for them. It's not exciting if you're not an Eagles fan, but it's exciting for them. They're going to be around for a while. The staff is young. The talent is young. I mean, they are going to be an elite football team for years to come, and they're going to be competing today with the 49ers, who are on a roll. And this might be the 49ers, the window only stays open for so long. And then you just keep losing players, right? Because money. Now, the nice thing for the Niners is they might be able to get out. Now, Trey Lance will be expensive even if you trade. So understand that, yeah, they struck gold with Purdy being super cheap and getting, they don't have to pay Jimmy G and they get that cheap contract of Purdy. But it's not so easy to get rid of Trey Lance if they end up starting Purdy. Trey Lance probably has like a $9 million, $10 million salary. So it's not the end of the world. It's not like a Russell Wilson contract or anything like that. But a lot of that is done in bonus with a high draft pick like Trey Lance was, 3rd in the draft. So there's going to be, you're stuck with them. Now, sometimes you get a little relief when you trade him, especially if you designate that trade to take place officially post June 1st. Then you could break down that salary cap hit, over a few years. Now, I don't think the Niners are in a position where they have to trade Trey Lance, even if Purdy's going to be the guy. I mean, you need a backup quarterback anyway. Yes, he's an expensive backup, but he's a backup that hasn't been, he's still, he got hurt. We really don't know what he could do. He might be a future star still. Like, no one's given up on him and called Trey Lance a bust that I know of. He hasn't had a chance to be a bust or not be a bust. Obviously, there's concern, but there's a lot of concern, because I mean, like Micro Fox comes in there and says that we should swap Zach Wilson for now. The Niners are never going to do that. We would have to throw in more. We'd have to throw in like a first round pick or a second round pick. Remember, the Niners gave up 3 first round picks to take Trey Lance. They're not going to give Trey Lance up easily, and they're certainly not going to do it for Zach Wilson, a guy who's failed in the very system they run. They just have no reason to do it. Trey Lance has a lot more upside. I mean, he hasn't failed as much as Zach has. So we'd have to throw things on top of Zach to do it. And the problem is again, it's that you have to understand is no, it's not their problem. It's our problem. Because why would they do it? It's our problem. It's not their problem. It's not their problem. It's our problem. You can't just magically wave a wand and say, you're trading us Trey Lance for Zach Wilson. They have to agree to it, my friends. And they're not going to because they're not stupid. Why would they give up a guy who hasn't played and failed, right, for a guy who's played 22 games and failed? It's our problem. Our problem. We're the ones that are going to have to put more in the basket for them. They're not going to do it. Yeah, I guess they can make an offer. They can make an offer. We can offer Nate Shepard for Trey Lance. We could offer Nate Shepard for Aaron Rodgers. We could offer Nate Shepard for anybody, right? We can offer. I'm not being condescending, Micro Fox. I'm being honest. I'm saying that they're not going to do it. I'm just being honest. They're not going to do it. Why would they do it? I agree with you. I would happily trade Zach Wilson for Trey Lance. I agree with you. I'm not saying you're crazy for wanting to do it. I would love to do it. I think there's a much higher chance that Trey Lance could become a good NFL quarterback than Zach Wilson. And I base that on the fact that Zach Wilson is at 22 games, has shown no progress or growth. There's a very slim chance he's going to turn into anything. I hope he does, and I hope I'm wrong, but the odds of it are very, very slim, whereas Trey Lance hasn't failed. He's just injured, right? So we don't know, but they know that. The San Francisco 49ers know that. The Jets know that. You know that. I know that. We all know that. They're not going to do the trade. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to give Trey Lance for Zach Wilson. We can make the offer, and they're going to say no. But now, what are you willing to give on top of it? I'm willing to talk about it. Look, I don't know that it's an answer for us, though, right? Most Jet fans want a guy for win now. Most guys think that we want to win now. So Trey Lance still hasn't played football in over 3 years. You have the 2020 where he played 1 game. That season or whatever, the 21 season, he didn't play, right? So, like, the 21 season, he didn't really play. I think he got hurt, and the Niners weren't using him. They had Jimmy G. Then this season, he hasn't played. I mean, so that means starting it, it'll be like it's 3 full seasons where he hasn't played more than a couple of games. That means that he needs development time, and the Jets, most Jet fans are in, we got to win now. So, if you took Trey Lance, wouldn't he be the same kind of thing? He would be a developmental guy. So it's just, I just don't see it. I mean, because we would have to trade Zach Wilson and guys, right? And we both have to cover the bonuses of them both. Like it's still paying for Zach. You could look at overthecap.com. We still have to pay Zach. We still have to recognize the bonus that we gave him. So we're still going to take dead cap hit for Zach, even if we trade him. So I just don't know how it works. Like even if we got a Trey Lance, like I understand you're saying we have a relationship, but they're not going to let their relationship get in the way of business. These guys got to keep their jobs, right? What is Shanahan going to say? I want to help the Jets. I want to be nice to the Jets, so I'm going to let them rip us off, and I'm going to give them Trey Lance. I know you're saying that they traded up for him, but they saw the 22. They saw the 22 games that Zach Wilson played, though, right? We were high on Zach, too. We turned down crazy trade offers, and we took Zach Wilson. We invested a number 2 pick. We could have traded down. We could have had tons of trade value. We could have taken Justin Fields. We could have taken Trey Lance. Like, we invested tons in him, right? 22 games later, it's looking like a mistake. Now, the Niners, yes, I mean, for the right deal, they might say, oh, we'll take a shot at Zach Wilson. We could develop him, but they're not going to do it they're not going to give Trey Lance for Zach Wilson straight up. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to. Why would they do it? Why would they? Like it doesn't make any sense. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that if we had Trey Lance. Trey Lance hasn't started. He hasn't played. He might be great. Why would San Francisco want Zach Wilson? Zach Wilson's a problem right now. We can't cut him because of the dead cap hit. We're stuck with him. We would love to cut loose. If we could cut loose with Zach Wilson for free, we would do that in a heartbeat. If we could just cut loose, wouldn't that be great? No cap hit. That would be amazing. Right now, we're stuck paying the kid $10 million, and the odds that he's going to hit is so slim. Like, so slim. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad idea to want to trade Zach for Trey Lance. I'm saying that we would. What are you willing to throw on top of Zach Wilson to make the deal happen? But then you also have to consider it's very doubtful we'd go out and get like an Aaron Rodgers, right, and pay all that money. And then say, okay, we're going to develop Trey Lance instead. Because remember, if we were to bring in Derek Carr, then it's over. There's no point in trading Zach for Trey Lance because neither of them would play because Derek Carr would be our starter for 3 to 4 years. Aaron Rodgers, if we trade for him, it would be 1 or 2 years, right? Aaron Rodgers would be but most likely if we traded for him, we'd want it to be 2 years. The rookie contracts of Trey Lance and Zach Wilson are over. Because we're not going to exercise the option for guys who haven't played, right? We're not going to exercise the 5th-year option. So by the time you're ready and Rodgers is gone, and this is what I'm worried about. Like if we get Aaron Rodgers, we look at Zach Wilson, everybody's saying, oh, Zach Wilson will get groomed by Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, but what's going to happen? Like it's going to be year 5 of his contract. Like we're not going to exercise the option. We could cap him. It doesn't make sense. The timing doesn't work. He's a free agent. He's gone. We'd have to sign him as a free agent. How do you value him? How do you value Zach Wilson? Oh, I sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 2 years. I'm ready to go, but we don't have real time. We have nothing to judge by. So if Aaron Rodgers plays for the next 2 years, there is no Zach Wilson and there's no Trey Lance, even if we traded him for Trey Lance, because how would we know what to do? We wouldn't have any ownership of their contract. They're gone after 4 years, unless you exercise the 5th-year option. But are we going to really do that? So one of the things that have to happen is when they say we're getting a veteran quarterback, sometimes I think it's just going to be a 1-year thing. And it's not, it's going to be like a 1-year deal for Henneke or Minshew or something. Like when they say veteran quarterback, I don't know. Because if you bring in Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr, if Aaron Rodgers plays 2 years, there's no Zach Wilson. It's 4 years into his contract. But by the time you're ready to use him, it's his 5th year. That offseason, he's a free agent. So how do we value him? I mean, how would any team value him? I mean, I guess we'd worry about that problem when it came. I mean, if we get Aaron Rodgers without having to give up much draft capital and it's only a 1-year thing and then he's going to leave and retire, okay, fine, because then you still own Zach Wilson for the 4th year and you could check him out and see how he is. The problem is how do you test him? We're already the win now team. How do you test the new quarterback that has failed? How do we test Zach? Base it on what he does in practice? Like it's really tough. But if you don't have to trade a lot for Aaron Rodgers, I guess you bring him in for 1 year. Then you give Zach year 4. But if he sucks, remember, now we took a step back. We do whatever we do with Aaron Rodgers, and now we take a step back if Zach doesn't pan out. It's gambling again. It's really a bad situation we were put in. You know, I know that it's easy to say that I mean, I guess we'd see progress better than any other team in training, but we thought he was good. Our coaching staff thought he was good. It's not like they saw him and they knew he was bad and said, well, we're going to just start him anyway. They believed he was good. They were talking about him. They were raving about him in practice. Oh, he's going to be a problem for the league, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that it's enough. I don't know that it's enough. So, look, I don't think either team makes the deal. By the way, Johnny Marahiel became a snacker just now before. I want to acknowledge that and thank the professor. He wasn't a professor, but I'm going to call him professor forever. I also want to acknowledge. So let me see. Can I show that? Oh, yeah. Thank you for joining. Thank you for becoming a snacker. I appreciate you becoming a snacker, Johnny. And I enjoyed you're out there watching. Super Leroy, I see you. I know that you're still there for Zach. Look, I don't want them. I was the biggest Zach fan in the world. Like, I want Zach to work out more than anyone alive. I'm just saying, if we get a veteran quarterback for anything more than a year, it's really hard to know, because it's hard to judge a guy just on practice. Like, it's hard to know if they're the guy or not. So, and then, yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying Trey Lance is highly valued. I'm not the one yelling to trade for Trey Lance. But the one advantage that Trey Lance has over Zach Wilson is that Trey Lance hasn't played 22 NFL games as poorly as Zach Wilson has. So Zach Wilson's in a bigger hole than Trey Lance. Trey Lance, I'm not happy with that either, because the fact that he hasn't played in 2 years is telling. I mean, everyone says, well, it's not his fault he got hurt. How come we hate Jimmy G because we can't have him because he gets hurt? Becton is the worst bust in JD's history of picking picks. What a catastrophe. We could have taken the other guy. We took, right? But when injuries guys we don't like, then we justify it and say, oh, it's because he was out of shape and he wouldn't have gotten, right? All this nonsense. And then when it's a guy we like, we say, oh, it doesn't matter that he was hurt. I mean, the reality is Trey Lance can't stay on the field as of right now, right? He's just as bad as Jimmy G. And he's never played in NFL more than 2 NFL games in a row. So there's no way to know how good Trey Lance is. But at the same time, I don't think the Niners would trade him for Zach Wilson. I think it's a bad deal for both teams, because both teams still have to pay the bonus penalties for each other's guys. And we have to pay the guys. So it makes the situation even worse. You're paying even more. We'd be paying even more money for Trey Lance, and they would be paying more money for Zach Wilson, because they'd be paying the dead cap hit for trading Trey Lance, and we'd be paying the dead cap hit for trading Wilson, and we'd be paying their salaries. You see how it gets all messed up? So, look, and Leroy say, oh, you're getting ahead of yourself. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. But, it is something to think about. Like, if we bring in Cara Rodgers, and Rodgers plays 2 years, there's an issue, because we're not going to pick up the 5th-year option for Zach Wilson. So that's an issue, because he's going to be a free agent, and it's going to be impossible to value him. He's definitely not getting a long-term deal. We can definitely get him for 1 year. It's just, is someone going to outbid us? How much do we pay for that year? And then we're risking that year because we don't know if he's good or not. So we might say, okay, we're going to pay money for Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers retires, right? We had 2 great seasons, and now we're going to put all this risk that Zach Wilson got better under Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, Leroy, I'm not against. What are you talking about? I'm not against Rodgers coming here. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the reality that if Rodgers comes for 2 years, it creates a situation for Zach that we don't talk about. And that is, we're not going to know what to do with him. Now, maybe he'll, I don't know, what, 5-6 million? We can get him 1 year prove it deal. And then if he does really well, we're going to have to pay him big money. And if he sucks, we're going to lose a season and everyone's going to be pissed off. That's all I'm saying. Steven, he is the CEO of the Jet Lounge. He's my friend. He's awesome. If you are on Twitter, you should be listening and participating in the Jets Lounge. Comes in with a super chat. I haven't seen you in a while, brother. How you doing? And he says, sup, brother, because he calls me his brother too. Trey Lance, severely overrated, played 19 games total against the like of Nickel States. Jets Lounge lives on. You know, Zach was the same thing, right? I mean, same competition. That was the whole thing, the critique on Zach. You know, he hasn't played against real competition. I think that's reason for concern. I think that's reason to, like, not, you know, I think that's a thing to be very concerned about, just with Zach Wilson. I think when you take guys out of small schools, you have to acknowledge that they haven't played against great competition, and you don't know if they would have earned those draft picks, so that draft status, if they had been playing in the Big Ten, you know, or whatever, or, you know, like in one of the real conferences, playing against teams like Georgia and Alabama. How would they have done in college? So all of that is very legit. I agree. Look, I don't want Trey Lance, and I am very realistic about Zach Wilson. Like, it's not looking good, but it's not impossible that he could work out. But it's also not impossible that Trey Lance could work out. The only point I'm making is it doesn't make sense for the Niners, because the Niners got to see a lot of Zach Wilson. Why would they want to buy our problem? Why would they want to trade for our problem when their guy was hurt and they don't know for sure that he's not the right guy? Maybe he's not, but at least they don't know 100%. And the other thing, even if you called it an equal trade, they both get hurt because they both have to take dead cap hits on the bonuses that they paid those guys, and they have to pay the salaries of the guys they traded for. So it becomes worse cap situation. It's like, and the Jets can't have a bigger cap hit. We're already going to have to scramble to make room for Rodgers, right? We're going to have to cut guys. We can't then, on top of that, have the Zach Wilson $10 million, what I think it's $15 million if we trade him cap hit, and we have to pay Trey Lance his $10 million salary, and we're going to have to pay Aaron Rodgers. We can't do it. We can't do it. Let's go Niners. Yeah, man, half an hour. No, they're the early game. We're getting close. So I just don't see it as a trade that would happen. But I mean, the idea is fine. I mean, I think there's a reason that they're not going to trade. I think the reason that you're not going to see Zach, and he could get traded if it works out, everything else balances it out. But you have to understand, if we trade Zach Wilson, we still have to take the cap hit of all the bonus that we gave him. So it's not so simple. I think that's why I don't expect that. That's why I think the Jets are saying, we believe in him and we're going to continue to develop Zach, because they're stuck with him. So what else are they going to say? He stinks, but we're stuck with him? Of course they're going to say we're developing him and we're not giving up on him. They're stuck with him. Probably for 2 years. I think post June 1st next year, it's not as horrible, but it's still pretty bad. You know, but the bottom line is if we were to get Aaron Rodgers here for 2 years for the Jets, the bottom line is we're going to forget all about Zach Wilson. You know, like if we're 5-1, or, you know, even 5-2 or 6-3 or 7-3 next year, you know, it's at some point in the year you're not even going to hear his name come up. Like, no one's going to be talking about Zach Wilson. We're going to be talking about Aaron Rodgers. Now, if we're 4-4 with Aaron Rodgers, we're fucked. We're fucked. You know, that's the worst case scenario. That's the nightmare scenario, is we get ourselves a quarterback like Aaron, whoever you like, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr, I don't know, or Jimmy G or whatever, whoever they bring in. If they bring in one of those quarterbacks, we pay a whole bunch of money for them, stick Zach in the developmental tank, you know, back in the oven. And then we as a team are like a 4-4 team. or even worse. If we're worse, then goodbye Salah. He's done. Maybe even JD, which I would hate. But like the pressure to win is so high if we get Aaron Rodgers. Like it's astronomical pressure. Like unbelievable, as much pressure as we've ever had on our team. You know what I mean? Like the pressure is just tremendous. I mean, it's like it's just a shit show if we don't win. If we end up, I don't know if we talk about that enough. We talk about all the things that could happen if we were to get a quarterback. We don't talk about what would happen is if the Jets get a quarterback and don't win. That would be like the biggest disaster ever to hit our team in since the fiasco with Fitzmagic when we gave him 15 million, when 15 million used to be a lot and he was horrendously bad. Purdy. Oh, someone's saying Purdy. I think that we're similarly built though. If you had a healthy offensive line, like AVT's not hurt, if Beckham was to come back, if we draft a tackle, if we have a healthy offensive line and Breece Hall was 100%, I think it's a similar offense. So I mean Purdy could be okay. So I'm not going to say he wouldn't work. Now, the Niners have run that system a lot longer. They have Shanahan himself. So I wouldn't be surprised if Purdy wasn't as good if he was a Jet. That wouldn't be surprising at all. But I'm not going to say he'd be totally different and be a different guy and can't play in the NFL. I mean, especially playing for the Jets if everybody was healthy. I mean, we're not that far behind the Niners if we're healthy. If we get our offensive line playing well and we get Breece Hall back on the trajectory that he was on, we got Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. I think we're pretty good. Was the little play pool international? The little play pool? What was that? I don't know what you're saying. Play pool. Oh, the playoff intentional. Was the title playoff intentional? No. Did I make a mistake on the title? That was not intentional. It was not. Oh, Playoof talk and predictions. That's what happens when you're blind. These glasses suck. Don't you hate when your eyesight starts to go faster than your insurance of getting new glasses? Like I don't last a year. This pair of glasses lasted me 6 months and they were no good anymore. So I've been living with like poor eyesight, especially like the screen with the blurring. Awful. I see a friend talking Jets with Tigo. What's going on? What's good, man? What's good? Jimmy G is on the DL more than he's on the field. So, same with Lamar Jackson. Yeah, look, a lot of quarterbacks get hurt though, right? But Jimmy G particularly has missed a lot of time. That's why a lot of people that don't like Derek Carr, I'll say at least he's available. Derek Carr plays. Derek Carr doesn't have an injury history. It's kind of nice. That's an advantage. Of course, I wish the Niners good luck, Tammy. I got my 49ers Chaos channel. When it comes to the West side of things, I root for the Niners, so I'm going to be rooting for him, cheering for him. I hope my boy Kittle plays and he's healthy and he goes crazy because he's the best tight end I've ever seen since probably he's as good. I'm not going to say he's a Patriot, so it's hard to judge Gronk because I have that natural hatred for him. Let's just say I love Kittle. I love him. He's a stud. A stud. I love watching that kid play. He's great. He's a beast. And I hope he goes off today. That's kind of funny to you. It's a funny mistake, right? Pre-game play-oof talk. It makes me like oof because we're not in the playoffs. Who's this? If you want a friend, Joe, if you want a friend, MLK, if not, all cool. Who's LMK? What are you talking about? I can't understand anything. It's too early in the morning. Oh, I see you say. Oh, okay. Are you saying you want to come on? I'm not going to be on that long, but okay. All right, Tigo, check the right there. You want to trade back and get Mayer. And Morris says he wants to trade back and get Mayer. Yeah, I mean, look, I just don't think we have the. I don't think that we're in a luxury situation. I think taking Mayer at this point would be a luxury situation. If we had everything else anyway. I like the way Jeremy played Ruckert the last game of the year. I think they purposely, it was very intentional that they put him in development for a year. I think they had 2 veteran tight ends they paid money to. I think Yeboah was the 3rd tight end because of special teams. I think that Jeremy Ruckert, there was no concern about the fact that he was not dressing. I think it was 100%. We have the luxury of developing this tight end. We don't need him to be playing, and we don't have to play a rookie. Let's develop this rookie. And if there was an injury, we would have had him. You would have seen him come up if there was an injury. And one of those weird things that happen is when we finally have a good guy ready, like Jeremy Ruckert, that we're developing, the injury doesn't happen. Because, if we didn't have Jeremy Ruckert, Conklin would have went out with a broken leg. And then CJ would have, the injury bug would have came and we would have had Yeboah as our starter. But because we had Jeremy Ruckert and we were able to withstand an injury at tight end, of course it didn't happen. But it would be hard to imagine them going for a tight end because I think Jeremy Ruckert, when he came in that last final game of the year, was everything as advertised. That was exactly what we saw in the little sample, everything that we were hoping to see when we drafted Jeremy Ruckert. Let me bring on Tigo. What's up, brother?
Hello. How are you doing?
How you doing?
Fine evening.
I'm doing all right.
Morning for you, right?
Morning for me, early before football. I just thought I'd jump on before tonight's linebacker rankings with Dom C. I thought I would come and talk a little before the game start.
Yeah, hang out.
So,
did you hear about the Fangio to Miami news?
The who? I knew that was. I didn't know it was official. I knew they were talking.
Just became official, like 8 minutes ago.
Okay, that's not the best news. I think he's a good coordinator. I think they made a good hire. What do you think?
Great hire.
Yeah,
and it's one of those hires that helps Mike McDaniel too, because one, that defense needs to get better in Miami, but 2, Vic Fangio was a great head coach for a long time, and it helps him manage those parts of the games. I'm very, very sad that he went to Miami because Miami's gonna get better.
I love Jim Kelly. He's great. I love how he took my mistake and he turned it into lemonade.
Way to do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good hire for Miami. So they have a head coach who's very offensive minded. He seems to be really smart, and then you have a top-notch defensive guy, and they have talent on their defense. It could be a problem.
Yeah,
it could be a real problem,
especially because the thing with Miami's defense was never really personnel. It was scheme. The scheme that they ran never worked because now they have Bradley Chubb. They've got, I forget the guy that lines up on the other side of him. I think he went to the University of Miami. He's pretty good too, in the edge rusher. They've got Xavier Howard still, who last year had a really, really bad year, but he's still a top flight cornerback. So it's all crazy.
I'm not afraid of Brady going to Miami because I think that if you look
at
the
money for it.
Well, but not only that, but if you look at Tua, he was playing as well as Brady was playing. I know everyone hates to admit it, but the guy had a 105 quarterback rating.
He was a top 10 quarterback this year. When he was healthy and when he was in, it hurts me to say this, but noodle arm Tua was slinging it really, really effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jet fans just don't want to see it. We're blind to things.
It's not just don't want to see it. It's just it sucks when bad quarterbacks do good because that's what Tua is, right? He's a bad quarterback being elevated by an insanely good scheme. The real problem is it's the same scheme we run. And so we were all mad because how is Noodle Arm Tua doing this and we can't get Zach, Chris Streveler, Joe Flacco, or Mike White to do that?
Yeah. So it's funny, Joe Campione, who hated the Zach Wilson draft, hated drafting Zach Wilson, despised it, has been an anti-Zacher, and he proved to be right, didn't believe in him. He loves this guy Hooker from Tennessee. I guess this is a guy he likes. What do you think of that? If we would look, I said it myself. I said not the second round, but I said I've said this, that if Hooker slipped to the third round when we were picking, we should take him.
Still too high.
You still think that's too high?
For Hendon Hooker, absolutely.
Third round?
Oh yeah. He's not even on my radar before the 5th round.
Wow.
There are other quarterbacks in this draft that have a better skill set than Hendon Hooker and aren't the same age as Tom Brady. Right?
Mhm.
And aren't coming off of a major injury that will keep them off of the field until the late into the year. So, like, there's too many things going against Hendon Hooker for him to be a pick anything higher than a 5th round. And, like, in my eyes. And it's basically just because of his age. You're going to take a developmental quarterback who's 25, right? Like, that was my biggest knock last year on Kenny Pickett. Was like, he's a project quarterback. He was still a first rounder. He's a project quarterback, but he's an older project quarterback. So you're going to have to wait around for a year or two before he gets up to NFL speed. And then by that time, he's 27. And when it comes time to re-sign his first contract, he's 30 or something along those. And that was my thought process there. Hendon Hooker, like, Tanner Mackey, Jake Hayner, Jaron Hall, Max Dugan are all guys that I would legitimately look at before I looked at Hendon Hooker.
What do you think of the kid from UCLA? Davis Thompson, Williams, or something like
Dorian Thompson,
Dorian
Robinson. I haven't looked at him 100% just because UCLA wasn't a big program this year. And if you're not a top 5 or 6 quarterback in the draft, I don't really look at you that much, especially in a year where we don't need, the only reason I know things about Max Dugan is because TCU went on an insane run this year. You know what I mean? And so this is the only reason I looked at him. Jake Hayner, just because I consider him probably the 6th best QB in the draft. Tanner Mackey or McKee or whatever it is out of Stanford is super interesting. That kid is insane. 6'6" with really good arm strength and athletic ability. And it's and his release is insanely good, but he's still a project. But you can't teach 6'6", which is super interesting.
I love those big quarterbacks, especially if they can toss the ball. And I've heard people say he's not really. I've heard people say that he's not really on a good team. That if he had a better Stanford team, he might be highly regarded.
It's funny to me because if you look at this quarterback class, Will Levis, I think by the end of this. By the time we get to April and it's time to draft, I think Will Levis is the number 1 quarterback taken off the board. I think that wholeheartedly because people are he's going to do the Zach Wilson throw at his pro day, right? And people are going to fall in love with his raw traits. But I find it so interesting that evaluators are able to look at a guy like Will Levis who went to Kentucky or Anthony Richardson who went to Florida, both really bad programs this past year, and look at those supporting staffs and be like, I can look past their supporting staff because their athleticism and their rawness, just talent that they have is there and clearly on tape. But then you get a guy like Tanner Mackey, but because he's on the West Coast playing for Stanford, a school that's not normally a pipeline for NFL talent, he's not getting the same kind of treatment because in my eyes, Tanner Mackey is 100% probably a 2nd or a 3rd round quarterback. And he probably doesn't go that high because he went to Stanford.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick. I've heard Dom C talk about that guy too. I got to watch some of his footage. I mean, Stanford always gets really good quarterbacks too. Like at a high school, they're great at recruiting because they get the best. They get the combination of talent versus smarts. Like if you're super smart, which a lot of quarterbacks are, you're gonna get pursued very highly by a school like Stanford, and it's a desirable school. Who doesn't want to go to Stanford? So
That's the biggest thing that I think a lot of people need to, like, when it comes to the quarterback position. And it's like one of those things that I've started thinking about, like, now that I have a kid, which is just like, especially at the quarterback position, it's so cerebral. It's so like the whole game is up here because you can see that like the smart guys tend to do better than the athletic guys. Because like a great example of this is Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady had no athletic ability like at all when it came to his evaluation and all of this stuff coming out of the draft, but he's just smarter than you. He was never the best thrower of the football. He was never the best athlete. He was never the biggest, the strongest, any of those things in his entire career. But he is undoubtedly the GOAT because he just knew what you were doing before you did. He's just smarter than you. And it's like, if you have all of the talent in the world, and you're a quarterback, you should try to be as smart as you possibly can, because nothing's going to be able to stop you.
Yeah. What's up, Cy Thompson? He's a member. He's a snacker. And so he doesn't know quarterbacks from USC. Well, this guy's from UCLA, so
yeah,
that we're talking about. You could never have too many cocks. Just ask Green Bean; he'll tell you. 6'9" quarterback. Have you heard of this guy?
I'm looking him up now.
6'9".
Oh my God, 6'9", 215 out of Nevada. Jeez, he's a senior.
Undrafted free agent. Why not? I wouldn't complain about it. I mean, it's undrafted free agents. The good thing about them is no Jet fan should ever be upset about undrafted free agent signings, because it costs, like, it's obviously
nothing but money.
It's nothing. It costs us nothing but a few hundred, a couple hundred, $150,000.
And it's not our money.
It's not our money. So it's like, there's no, like, who cares? Why would anybody be upset? Like, I never complain. I love it when we sign lots of undrafted free agents, especially with Joe Douglas's track record. When you consider Huff and you consider Bam Knight now, and, like, who's to argue when he makes one of these decisions to, when he signs these guys?
That's insane.
I thought that Dunn was going to be a good cornerback, a good secondary guy. I honestly did.
Isaiah Dunn?
Yeah, I thought I was on his train for a little bit, but that never panned out. I was disappointed that we didn't if we didn't draft him. The fact that he slipped out of the draft, not signing for Verone McKinley, was really upsetting to me.
So many people passing, that's the thing that always is going to blow my mind, is that so many people looked at Verone McKinley and they were like not even take a shot at him in the 6th or the 7th round. Nobody.
Unbelievable to me. I watched him every week. I was like, what did it's like Thibodeau took all the attention. It's like everybody was so obsessed looking at Oregon with Thibodeau that they overlooked this guy. It's like he was on TV every week here. It's like, and I kept hearing his name. Verone McKinley makes the tackle. Verone McKinley not deflects the pass. I was like, I thought for sure he'd be, I thought he'd be 4th round, honestly. I thought somebody would easily take him. Played for a Big Ten school, Pac-10 school, Like, why wouldn't you take him? He's playing against great competition, real quarterbacks, real receivers, played well, consistent. Doesn't make any sense to me. How old is Herndon Hooker going to be?
25. He'll be a couple months shy of being 26.
And will he be not that we would play him anyway if we drafted him, but would he be ready to even practice and develop?
No. Like I said, he just tore his ACL. Tore his ACL at the end of the year. He's not going to be ready until at minimum week 8. Like,
right.
It's the same situation that happened with the wide receiver from Alabama. Right? I'm not saying that Hendon Hooker is anywhere near that good. Hendon Hooker was a 3rd round pick before his knee blew up, right? But like taking a 25-year-old project quarterback who, like, who benefited from an insanely good Tennessee program around him. It's one of those things where it's just like I wouldn't be surprised if he just went undrafted, and he was just a UDFA. Some team will take a shot at it, but using a pick on a kid who's a developmental quarterback, even with his size and athleticism and all that stuff, who's 25, will be 26 before the season starts. And then after that, won't be available to even practice before week 8. It's really interesting.
Well, and plus bringing in a veteran quarterback, that, if that veteran quarterback that we bring in even plays for 2 years, like an Aaron Rodgers, then you're talking about his first game that he'd get an opportunity to play is when he's 27 years old.
Yes.
It's almost humorous. Yeah. 27-year-old rookie.
It's funny. It's the same thing that's going to hold back the BYU kid, Jaron Hall, is that he's going to be 25 at the draft,
Wow.
And it's like one of those things where Jaron Hall is another one of those guys that he's got all of the physical traits, but he's a project quarterback who's going to be 25. It's just like, if you want to be a project quarterback, you have to be 21 or 22 years old to be even considered a first-round pick, because Jaron Hall has a lot of those really interesting traits. But at 25, I'm not taking a risk on getting a guy that old to do all of that stuff. So,
I think a lot of people talking about the draft. I think the only problem with this year's draft is it's deep, but not for us. It's not deep. It doesn't feel deep in the positions that we care about. It's deep in cornerback. It's deep in edge. It's deep with tight ends, but it's not the positions. Running back, tons of running backs.
Tons of running backs.
But it's not what we need. That's the problem. I don't see tons of defensive tackles. After the top 4 or 5, I don't see many offensive tackles. And I certainly don't see a lot of offensive guards. Where are the guards?
Offensive linemen, surprisingly, you can get solid guys late in this draft. It's one of the reasons I made a video earlier today about this, where I don't think the Jets should draft in the first round. Dom mentioned it before. We've mentioned it before. We've talked about it. But there is no incentive for us to pick in the first round this year, at all. And I don't think we should, because there's only one player that absolutely fixes and fits what we need to do in the first round, and that's Peter Skoronski. And he won't be available at 13.
What if he is? What if he is? Because we don't
sprint to the podium,
right? Because we don't have. Right. We don't have to trade down before we know, right? Many teams wait until the clock starts, right?
Absolutely.
We have 15 minutes on the clock. We might have a deal ready to go. JD might make a deal with the team and say, if our guy's not there, I'll call you back. We'll do the trade.
But that's what you do, right? You have all of those packages ready for it. And you say, who do you want? Who are you waiting for at 13? Right? Because I don't want to call you if your guy's not here and waste my time. I've got 15 minutes to make this trade. But 13 is for sale unless one player is there.
Right.
And we're not going to tell you what that player is, but it's for sale. If he's there, we're going to take the pick. But if he's not, we'll call you and we'll take next year's first. And the thing is like I said, Peter Skoronski is the only player that fits the bill of what we need at the offensive line. Because the offensive line problem is not as simple as draft a tackle.
I'll tell you, if we traded back, and this is, I don't know if the simulators are right or not, but based on what the simulators are saying, if we traded back from 13 to, let's say, 23, 24, something like that. So we still have a first round pick. We go back to 23, 24. If we were to pick up that team's second rounder this year and their number 1 pick next year, I am not going to cry about that trade.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not crying about that trade, because
I was
even
saying
though it
that
hurts this year, even though people will be pissed, maybe if there's a guy they loved, can you imagine? No one's going to be complaining next year when we go into that draft and have 2 number 1s
again.
Yeah.
In a year where we're going to have $150 million in cap space.
Right.
That we haven't signed anybody. But this year we're tight on the cap. Next year we're not. All of the dead money comes off of the books. All of the big contracts on like the McCagnon contracts come off of the books. And we're fresh. 140, I think it's $143 million in cap space in 2024. And that's not including the projected explosion of the cap with the new TV deals.
Right.
Not taking a first round pick in this year's draft makes too much sense, in my opinion. Because here's the thing, that the way that I look at it.
But then we would have to trade that 24 down into early second round. Maybe someone wants to pop up, and then maybe we get like another second round pick, like an addition or third round pick, and then next year get another second round pick or something. You know what I mean? Like we could really stack the 24 draft, and then
I think you stack this year's draft and get an additional one next year. If you can go to a team that doesn't have a first round pick this year, right? Because there are a couple of those teams that don't have a first round pick this year. New Orleans, Miami, something along those lines. If you can go to one of these teams, probably not Miami, or a team that picks within the top 10, right? And you say, hey, do you want to come back into the first round? Because there are enough teams that feel like they're one first round draft pick away from coming back in, you know, and doing something like that. The Jets did it. We did it 3 times last year. We picked at 3, or we picked at 4, we picked at 10, and then we came back into 23 or 24 or whatever to go get it. And so like my question goes, what happens if Vegas gets Tom Brady? Right? And they're picking at 7. So then they take the offensive tackle. Let's say they take Peter Skoronski. He's off the board. It's the only player that we want. What's stopping them from coming back to 13 to pick in front of New England? Because they want to get Devontae Adams a partner in crime, and they want to go get the TCU kid, or they want to go get Jordan Addison, or they want to go get Jackson Smith-Njigba or something along those lines, you know? And so they don't have another first-round pick this year. All right, cool. Give me next year's first-round pick. Give me this year's second-round pick, and give me next, like another third-round pick. I was talking about this. JD has proven to all of us, and he should have proved to all of us, that he knows how to find not just guys, starters in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round. If you look at our past drafts and we look at how many guys are legitimately contributing to our team that were picked the second, like let's say the 3rd round to the 6th round, it's insane. Let's just look at last year's draft. You've got Elijah Moore. We all love Elijah Moore. Michael Carter, Jamian Sherwood, who is the heir apparent to CJ Mosley. Michael Carter II, who is one of the best slot corners in the NFL. Jason Pinnock, who we were all upset that we lost to the Giants because they risked it, and he's starting over there. Brandon Eccles, who is right now our #1 backup corner. And then last year, who's complaining about the Breece Hall pick, the Max Mitchell pick, the Michael Clemens pick, the Jeremy Ruckert pick? Like, he knows how to find these guys late in the draft. With this draft not being top heavy, there's only maybe 10 guys who really, truly deserve a first-round grade. With this class being this weak on the top end, but having 60 or 70 guys that can truly have a second-round grade, you get out of the first, you get a first next year whose class is supposed to be way better. And then you ride off into the sunset. You can get a tackle in the 2nd round. Anton Harrison might be there in the 2nd round. Mauch out of North Dakota State University might be there in the 2nd. There's guys that you can go and get. There's no reason to rush for one of these guys who isn't Peter Skoronski, who has a limited skill set and a limited ceiling, because none of these guys, not even Peter Skoronski, are going to grade higher than Mekhi Becton or Elijah Vera Tucker at left tackle or right tackle, respectively. If they're both healthy for 17 games, Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison, Peter Skoronski, or Paris Johnson Jr. do not win the job, straight up. They're just not better than either one of those guys.
Not healthy. You got a healthy Becton. He's playing.
Yeah, exactly. That's now
unless he somehow stinks, but I don't see that as a possibility. It's not the kind of position where you're suddenly going to stink. If you come back healthy, he's a freaking beast. He's a monster. He's so strong. He crushes people. He's not going to suddenly lose that ability.
And with the hiring of Nathaniel Hackett going even more in his direction, Nathaniel Hackett's a run-first guy. What was Mekhi Becton's draft profile coming out? Fantastic in the run game. He just moves human beings and is just a monster there, and he struggles in pass protection. We're going to run the ball at a whole lot more. Like,
Yeah.
it just, everything is going to go right for Mekhi Becton this year because we've changed the scheme minor, but we've changed the scheme enough to go and get that guy, like to just make sure Mekhi Becton, because he's not going to be backpedaling with a defensive end and having his guard come at his knee again. He's going to be pushing into guys. His knee's going to be more stable. It's going to be better. And M. Morris, I actually think Peter Skoronski is this year's Elijah Vera Tucker. I like Voorhees a lot, but I think Skoronski's the guy that can play all 5 positions on the offensive line.
That's why we run to the podium for him.
Yeah, because he can play center. Worst case scenario, let's say like you don't bring back McGovern, right?
Yeah.
Because you want John Michael Schmitz in the second. Like you want him in the second, and he's gone.
Right.
And you don't feel comfortable getting anybody else to start, but you've drafted Peter Skoronski in the first. You could just play him at center for a year and just wait for the Michigan kid to develop. Because I really like the Michigan kid as like a 3rd round pick. If you don't get John Michael Schmitz in the 2nd round, what's it? It's Olusegun Oluwatimi or something along those lines.
Yeah, he's good.
He's real good. He's real big too, and I like him in the 3rd like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's mobile, and I like guys who can shift. Like he's a guy who can run, run to the outside and make an open field block, kind of like.
He gets to the 2nd level really well.
Yeah.
Like you double up on a DT with a guard, and he just sheds that really easily and gets in the face of a linebacker so fast. It's insane.
It's nice. Nice. It's a good thing to have. I'd be okay with that scenario. There's a lot of scenarios I'm okay with. Obviously, getting Peter would be tremendous. I would be very happy.
Melt.
We have another AVT, and then I'd be like, oh my God, if Becton comes back, we're going to be so awesome. Like if Becton comes back healthy and fit and is the Becton we saw his rookie year, and we get Peter and we have AVT coming back, it's going to be off the charts.
Yeah.
How good we could be.
It's insane because like if we do what I think a lot of Jets fans want us to do, which is double up like on offensive linemen 1st and 2nd round, like can you imagine if the draft plays out? Let's say we get Aaron Rodgers, right? And it doesn't cost us this year's 1. And for some reason it doesn't cost us this year's 2 either. So we have a 1st and a 2nd this year, right? And you walk away in the 1st round and the 2nd round with Peter Skoronski and John Michael Schmitz.
No.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
Like the
and
offensive
then,
line
imagine
Mekhi
Brees Hall.
Becton.
Imagine Brees Hall comes back healthy.
No, at that point you don't even bring him back. Say, Brees, relax. You can stay on the bench. We're gonna let Michael Carter eat. We're gonna let Bam eat. We're gonna keep you fresh for the playoffs because we're walking there. Like it doesn't matter. Like because we're just gonna have this impenetrable line on the offense. And then the best part is all of the backups are going to be high-level backups.
Yeah. But then, like the whole point of the Becton thing is, nobody has complete faith in Becton. We're all worried about Becton. That's why we're talking about drafting a tackle. If we knew that Becton was going to come back 100% healthy and be Becton,
and play 17 games,
I don't know if we're talking about taking a tackle
ever. No, not in the first.
I mean, right. The whole purpose and the reason why we're talking about taking a tackle is because we don't have faith in Becton, but we're still allowed and able to say, what if?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is recovering. He's walking around the building. He's working out. He's rehabbing. He's lost weight. He looks good. I mean,
skinny, man.
It's just like we can't rely on him and say he's definitely coming back at 100%. We can't sit there and say he's not, no matter what. That there's no chance that he can come back and be good. It doesn't make any sense to say that. He might. Like he might come back and be really good.
And we can't eliminate the Mike LaFleur of it all.
That's
there
true.
Is a very, very real situation in where not only was Mike LaFleur maybe a little too like not ready to be an offensive coordinator, but maybe he wasn't mature enough to be an offensive coordinator because you could see that certain players, he got certain favorites. Yeah. He had his favorite players. He had his favorite guys. And to the same extent, Salah does this too on the defense where he has his favorite guys who can do no wrong. Mm-hmm. Right. And that infuriates me a little bit, but the defense was working. So I'm willing to forgive you for liking Solomon Thomas and bringing him to the team because you drafted him number 3 overall in San Francisco and he's your dude and you want to help out your boy, right? But we still had a top 5 defense. He didn't negatively affect the team. Whereas if you look at like the whole offensive side, like how are you not finding a way to get a 6'3", 200 sub 4.4 wide receiver on the field consistently and regularly? And let me be the first to say, Denzel Mims has his issues, a lot of them. Catching the ball with his body, limited route tree coming out of college, all of those things. I get that. But how is it that you can't get that guy on the field? Even just a run block. Like what? You can't figure out a way to make that work? It just...
I mean, well, look at the whole thing that Keelan Cullen played above him for an entire year. They wasted a year of development of him on the field getting reps for a guy who was a ghost anyway. I think Coleman had 2 plays the whole year that really raised our eyebrows. He had the nice touchdown pass and he had a nice pass by Zach when he was running out of bounds. You take away those 2 plays and Coleman was like an absolute tragedy, like one of the worst starting WR2s in the NFL. He was a ghost. I used to call him the ghost.
Yeah, to be fair to Mimsy last year, not that like the one that happened.
But Mims could have played above him that first year.
Dude,
we were losing anyway.
Poisoning and losing like 15 pounds, that's serious. That's hard to come back from quickly, even as an athlete, because he lost weight. He didn't look good. And I don't mean like his play. I mean physically, he did not look good. That food poisoning took something out of him. Like ask Green Bean, who just came back from food poisoning, and he didn't even have it apparently nearly as bad as Mims did. You lose that much weight, you lose a step, you can't get 100%, you can't catch your breath. Like it's rough. It's really rough.
I feel bad for all of the receivers, in the sense that I don't think we know what we have with Mims because of Johnny, take care. The game is on. I'm gonna sign off too. I don't think we really know what we have with Mims. And even Elijah Moore, I really think they're big question marks because of the way the offense was run, because of the quarterback situation, because of the offensive line situation, and Mike LaFleur being, picking favorites and sticking to the same thing. And like, I just get this feeling that we don't really know 100% what we have.
The biggest one for me is the tight end room. We spent all of this money on the tight end room. We spent all of this money and draft capital on the tight end room. And then you get a guy like Mike LaFleur. And again, I liked Mike LaFleur. I was okay if he stayed or if he got fired. But one of the things that he absolutely did not know how to do was manage a tight end room. And that's one of the things that we're going to see an improvement on with Nathaniel Hackett, because he has a history of using his tight ends really, really well. And so we're finally going to see this tight end room that Joe Douglas went and spent a lot of money and draft capital on creating. And so I think next year is going to be the year where you're going to see like, oh, this is why we gave CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin all this money. Oh, this is why we drafted Jeremy Ruckert, even though we gave CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin all of this money, and they're going to do all of that stuff.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Anyway, the
NFC Championship football.
We're in a fun position with this draft because for me, it's fun because unless he pulls some kind of shocking surprise, there's not a lot of things he could do that are gonna piss me off. Like if he happens to like Broderick or one of the other tackles a lot and takes him at 13, I'm not gonna be pissed. And then if he trades back a little bit and gets more draft capital, I'm definitely not going to be pissed. And if he trades back and was to get, like, if he traded back only 4 or 5 spots and got like a Brian Branch, I would go crazy happy. Like, there's a lot of things that would make me happy. There's a lot of scenarios that would make me happy. It's not like there's only one thing I want to see happen or I'm going to be mad. There's tons of scenarios in this draft that are going to make me happy.
It's not like last year where we all wanted the edge and we thought we weren't getting him. Because everyone remembers, we go sauce Garrett Wilson. We all go, oh, well, I guess we're not getting the edge. And we're not going to build a pass rush at all. And everyone was not disappointed, but like on a scale of like 0 to 10 on the happiness scale, everyone was at like a 6 or a 7. We trade up and get Jermaine Johnson. Everyone explodes. It's the best draft in the entire history of and it's just, that's how it works.
Yeah, one of the things that do throw a cog in this upcoming draft is we don't know. We don't know what
Yeah.
picks we're going to have. It appears that we are going to. There's a very good chance that we're going to give away some draft capital to get ourselves a certain veteran quarterback. But if that doesn't happen, Derek Carr might just be a money thing.
Derek Carr will be just a money thing.
Right. So Derek Carr is just a money thing. If we end up going that way, Jimmy G is just the money. I know people don't like it. It's not popular. He gets hurt. He doesn't play full season. I know, but when he plays, he's been a top 10 quarterback according to DVOA. So
I'm not after seeing Brock Purdy run the San Francisco offense. I have zero confidence in Jimmy, because now you're telling me that a guy that was about to go undrafted, a guy that they took for craps and giggles, is running that offense and going to lead this team to the Super Bowl? Nah, I don't trust Jimmy at all.
I don't trust him. No, I don't have a lot of faith in him. But whatever we do, only Aaron Rodgers seems like the one option out of all of them, out of all the options, because I don't consider Lamar a realistic option. Out of all the options, it's only Rodgers that cost us draft capital.
Yeah, and it won't be that much.
Yeah,
I don't think it will be. I think it's going to be 2 middle round picks. I think like a second and a third get it done.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to be in the same year.
Yep.
We'll see.
Hey, yeah. So, hey, everybody, we're going to be back at 9:30 tonight Eastern, 9:30 Eastern, and we're going to be going over the top 10 linebackers coming out of the class, at least according to Dom C. Then we'll probably do a mock draft afterwards. Thanks for coming on now, Tigo.
This is a good list. I've seen it early.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I agree with 9 of the 10 positions, and the only one I don't agree with is 10, because I like a different guy. It's really good.
That's awesome. So, guys, be excited. 9:30 tonight, we're going to learn all about the linebackers. We're going to see the best linebackers coming out in the draft, whether you are a Niners fan, whether you're a Jets fan, or any fan of any team in the NFL. We're looking at all the linebackers. It affects everyone who thinks your team might select a linebacker. If you want to learn about them, our guy Dom C is going to help you do that tonight. And we'll see you later. Enjoy the games today. I'm about to turn it on. Take care, everybody. And here we go. Greatest co-host in the world. Watch 2K99. Get ready to rumble!
The tag team champions of the world!
My brotherly creeper.
That is the best intro I have ever received.
The world. The Buffalo Jets fan.
Yo.
George Fant is a barely above replacement level, pretty good left tackle.
How can you say that when he was
an-
top 3 in sack percentage last year for left tackles?
And I think when in doubt, until you have better reason, go with the optimistic view. And our defensive line is going to be giving a lot of people some trouble.
But yeah, it's got to be, I'm with you. I don't like the Nathan's fries when they're like floppy. It's got to be like done really well, you know. It's very hard to teach 6'3" and 4'3" speed. That's very rare. The talent's there. He's just got to put it together mentally.
Right.
To get on to you, I'm a cheater.